Hello, everyone, to the new year and the Evil Geniuses Bleed Blue podcast is back. I took a short break for the holidays, but I am back and ready to continue doing this content for you guys. Going to be picking up, talking about all the esports. I know I was focused mostly on Counter-Strike toward the end of the year, but we're going to pick back up. Trying to keep tabs on League of Legends, Dota 2, Rocket League, Valorant, and Counter-Strike. And that includes all of the teams associated with those esports for the most part. I don't the ones I don't really keep up as much with is probably going to be the LCS Academy roster. Although I'll keep tabs to see, some slight tabs just to see who's doing well, if there's any potential there to move somebody in, if that's a conversation that needs to be had for the League of Legends main roster. But that's one that I don't really keep tabs on as much. As well as I would say probably the female CS:GO team, although I do, and that also applies to the Valorant I'm sorry, what's it called? The Valorant Challengers League. I don't remember what it's called. I'm sorry. It's slipping. The name is slipping my mind. But those are just two that I don't. I keep tabs on them. Don't get me wrong. I do. ESL Impact is the CS:GO league, but regardless, I keep tabs on them. It's not that I don't. I just don't really watch as many of their games live, and that's mostly just due to time constraints. There's really only so much I can watch, especially with Evil Geniuses CS:GO division having what, four teams in addition, including the female roster. There's just a lot going on when these seasons start picking up, and so certain teams I'm just not going to be able to keep tabs on, especially with all the other stuff I got to deal with in my own life. But um, I will still keep tabs on it. Especially at the bigger events. When they go to bigger events, I'll keep my tabs on it, and I'll talk about it like I've done in the past. But yeah, so if there's anyone who's new who hasn't really seen this before, this is pretty much just a show where I just talk about everything Evil Genius is, or at least as much as I can. So my expertise mainly is in Counter Strike and to a certain extent Valorant as well. But I would definitely say Counter Strike is my main game. It's a game that I've been playing for many years now. I really enjoy and understand watching the pro scene for many years, since 2015, and yeah, it's just kind of it's my favorite of all esports, and so that's gonna be where I'm able to give a lot more insight is gonna be with Counter Strike. Valorant also a game that I've played a lot of, and not as much as of recent, but I always keep tabs on it, and I'll be following the professional scene as I've done since they started. And so, those are two games where I feel like I'm going to have a really good amount of insight into what I think the team's doing well, what I think the team's doing poorly. The next game, the next two really that are kind of at the totem pole of my, you got Counter Strike, which is the game that I understand the best. Valorant close is going to be a second. Next is between. I would probably say I might even understand League of Legends better than I understand Rocket League, at least from a macro perspective. Um, and I watch a lot of podcasts related to League of Legends, which is where I'm able to grab a lot of my knowledge and understanding of the game. So I don't know the intricacies. I don't think I've really ever played League of Legends. I've played it like once, but yeah, I don't really enjoy playing League of Legends, but I enjoy watching professional League of Legends. I really got into watching the LPL last year, so that's something that I'm going to try to continue to do and deepen my understanding of League of Legends in general. So that's probably the next game on the totem pole in terms of my understanding of it and what I'm going to be able to say about it. And then probably then Rocket League, just because Rocket League is a very simple game to watch. I understand there's a lot more underlying things that I probably won't be able to pick up on, but for the most part, it's pretty easy to tell if you're having possession of the ball a lot, if you're not having possession, who's pressuring who, is the passing good, what does the team chemistry look like, those sorts of things. Those are relatively easier to pick up on in an esport like Rocket League. And then finally, Dota 2. That's the one I really don't know a whole lot about Dota 2. I've never played Dota 2. I don't even have it downloaded. I have a lot of respect for Dota 2. I have very minimal knowledge on it. I tried to get into it, or at least understand it a lot better at the end of last year during TI, and I probably will continue to try to learn more. But especially now with them picking up a South American roster, which we'll get to in a second, when I get to do the Dota 2 section, yeah, there's just not really a whole lot that I can really delve into from a gameplay perspective and analyzing their gameplay. But I can still talk about the team, talk about how they're doing, give you an update on them, and from the minimal knowledge that I know, I can give my best explanation of what I think is going on with the team. Um, so that's kind of a rundown of what this show is all about, just in case you're new. And yeah, and so I typically order this by going through the MOBAs, and then I go into Rocket League, and then I kind of transition to Valorant and Counter Strike in the FPS genre. Um, and Obviously, I'm wearing my Evil Geniuses merch. Got to represent and all that. Got to step it up this year, merch team. I, I know. I have to do it every time. I have to. I have no choice. It's like ingrained in my brain now. I'm contractually obligated by nobody but myself. Um, but yeah, I mean, without wasting too much more time, like I said, a lot of these esports haven't started up yet, but I figured it's a good introduction to make. And I guess without any further ado, let's kind of touch quickly on. Let's get into League of Legends here. There's not really a whole lot going on, um, because season has not started yet. Season has not started yet. It won't start for a little bit. Well, actually, it's so the season starts January 26th. So that's about 2 weeks from now. Um, right? I think it's 2 weeks at most three. Yeah, 2 weeks. It starts on. It's going to be Thursday in 2 weeks. Yeah, so LCS has changed their scheduling. So LCS is going to be Thursdays and Fridays are the broadcasting days, and then they're going to extend it to Wednesdays during Super Weeks. I'm pretty sure this has to do with Valorant also now kind of taking up time in their calendar and time in their schedules. LCS has kind of taken a hit after last year. From a publicity standpoint, LCS has been really struggling over the past couple of years. And so, yeah, it just looks like Valorant's going to take up more time now, and it's going to eat into the LCS. Um, so that's why they're having a little bit of a different schedule. Um, but yeah, going to keep tabs on that obviously for obvious reasons. For those who aren't aware of the League of Legends roster, so it's going to be Someday and FBI, who we acquired from 100 Thieves. Someday to replace Impact, and FBI to replace Danny slash Kaori or Kaori. And then we have Inspired, who is the LEC MVP, LCS MVP. It was really great for us last year. Should be really great again. Young guy. So we have Inspired, and then we have Jojo Pyun, who improved drastically over the past year or so. Went from a guy who people just really weren't sure what he was going to be capable of, to now, lots of mechanical skill, but whether or not he had the knowledge to really be able to understand situations and when to do certain things, and his decision making in the mid game, it's looked like he's gotten much better at that. Obviously, still more improvement to be had, but yeah, dude just has so much potential, and I'm really looking forward. Probably was one of the best mid laners for the LCS as a whole by the end of the year, and I'm looking forward to seeing his improvement even more. Yeah, super exciting for Jojo Pyun, obviously. And then FBI, like I said, we got him from 100 Thieves as well. A very solid, um, ADC who uh, hopefully he'll be able to be a little bit more consistent with the laning phase. That's something that Danny really struggled with. Hopefully FBI is able to kind of provide Vulcan a little bit more strength in the laning phase. That's something we really struggled with. And obviously Vulcan, who has been a great support for the last 3 years. He's been a really good support. So yeah, just really looking forward to the season. Team looks strong. I don't know if it's an upgrade over last year, but I feel like if it's anything, it's probably a step to the side. Um, they were trying to pick up tenacity. It didn't end up working out. And we ended up getting FBI, which I don't think is really that much of a downgrade, to be honest. And yeah, just like overall, obviously we lost Danny, which sucks. I'm still praying that he's okay, and that he's in a good headspace, and that he's moving on and doing bigger and better things with his life. And very appreciative for everything that he did for EG. Um, you know, and hope he's doing well. But yeah, so this is the roster we have for 2023. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a solid roster. The LCS looks pretty okay, I guess, this year. I don't know. Yeah, it's a couple weird rosters, but I think EG is definitely one of the better teams in the LCS coming into this year, and so we'll see what they're able to do as their season, like I said, begins on January 26th. So in 2 weeks, that's probably when we'll talk about League of Legends again and kind of talk about how they're doing. So yeah, all right, that's it for League of Legends. Moving into, let's see here, Dota 2. I'm just gonna try to. Oh, I forgot. For some reason when I try to type in 2 with this font, it doesn't come up. So it's just gonna say Dota, but understand Dota is Dota 2. Um, yeah. Now with Dota 2, we picked up a South American roster, which I know nothing about. I really don't know anything about these guys, like at all. Which I know sounds kind of bad. It's just I really don't know anything about this Evil Geniuses roster. I don't really know who these players really are, to be honest. But the roster consists of, and if I pronounce any of these incorrectly, just let me know. I guess the phonetic spelling, I guess, if you want. Pakaz. It's Pakaz with an S after it. Chris Luck, Whisper, Matthew, and Panda Boo. I listen. I know nothing about these guys. Let's see. SG Esports has been on November 1st. Their slot was transferred to Evo Geniuses, so maybe that's where they came from. I'm not 100% sure. But the point being, they play. Let's see. They play on the 12th. They're going to be playing. So they're going to be playing this week. They're going to be playing this Thursday against Infinity. In the what is this? Let's see. South America Division 1 for the DPC Tour. So we'll see how it goes. I have really no expectations because I just don't know how good these players are. But yeah, we'll see how they do. And hopefully they do well, and we'll keep track of them as they get closer and closer to the major. Um, yeah. So like I said, I don't really have much to say because I don't really know based off of the roster where the expectations should be. Now I think for Evil Genius's brand's sake, they should be the best team. I mean, I don't see a reason why they should not be the best team in this region. Um, so we will see if they're able to do that and if they've GM'd properly and made the right roster decisions in terms of making this gamble to switch to South America. It's definitely going to be a highly critical period for them because they threw away something that was very, very successful, at least in terms of their North American success. Um, so kind of making this gamble is definitely a big switch for them. And so they will be highly criticized because they're a big organization in Dota 2 and they have a reputation in Dota 2. Um, Surprisingly, they have their reputation in Dota 2 is better than most of their other esports. So we'll see. I mean, maybe not anymore, obviously, after they dropped the North American roster in the fashion that they did. Um, but we'll see, and we'll keep track on them, and obviously high expectations for them. But it's hard for me to know what the realistic expectations are. I just don't know much about these players. Um, so yeah, all right. Moving on to Rocket League. And I'm kind of doing this just to kind of give you all kind of a gauge on where everyone is at the start of the year, because it's a it's pretty difficult really to gauge where everyone is. I don't want to just start talking about certain esports without mentioning all of them, at least for this first episode of the year. In the future, when there's really not much going on with some of these esports, I probably just won't do an episode, and then when something does happen, I'll talk about it. But for this first episode of the year, I feel like I want to give kind of a recap or as much as knowledge as I am aware of as to when the seasons are going to start for these teams and kind of what the expectations might be. So moving into Rocket League. Um, so for the Rocket League team, unfortunately during the fall they were not able to make it to the main event. I believe it's called. They just didn't. They didn't place highly enough. I think they got seventh place in terms of points, and they needed third, so they weren't able to get in. But for now, their journey in the winter. Let's see the Winter Open. Um, main event is going to begin, is going to begin on the 27th of January. And by the way, when I said they didn't do well enough in fall to make the fall main event, I think that's actually the major. Again, could be wrong, but I think it's the major. So that regardless, basically, when the big event that everyone tries to get to for Rocket League, they were not able to make it. They did not place highly enough in terms of how many points they needed to make it there. So they have another chance here to kind of start the season strong in the winter and try to see if they can get enough points to make it to the major. Yeah, that's going to start on the 27th, so in 2 weeks. And yeah, and for those who aren't aware, the Rocket League team is a German roster that they're a German roster that plays in the European League. Their squad consists of Catalysm and Ivan, who have been on the roster for a very long time. Although I don't think Ivan is German. Yeah, he's Austrian. But Catalysm and Ivan have been on the roster for quite some time. And then Tox we picked up last year, um, and he's been touted for his defense, and he definitely has brought that to the team. And then Verge is the coach. And so, yeah, we'll see how they do this, during the winter season. Hopefully they do well and we're able to get into the major. But yeah, like I said, that doesn't start until January 27th, so in 2 weeks. So we'll keep touch on it once it begins at that time. Moving on, moving on. We have a little bit of Valorant news. Not a lot. Very very brief. Not anything crazy. But just enough. Um, some roster news. Nothing massive, as this barely even fits on my page. I'm not going to alter it that much. Yeah, because the weird part is, look, season doesn't start for a while, guys, for Valorant. Valorant season really doesn't begin until March 26th for EG. So, look, they got plenty of time, all right? Plenty of time. But it has been interesting that they haven't really announced any new players. The last person that got announced was November 17th. EG acquired Zix, who's a coach for NRG. Um, in terms of player signing, the last thing was in November 11th when they signed Ethan and BCJ. But since then, they did announce that they were doing some type of open qualifier for players to try to, if they do well enough, they can get onto EG's squad. Because currently EG's squad consists of 7 players. Consists of Boostio, so the players from the previous roster, which are Boostio, Reformed, Jogamo, Calm, and Apoth. So that was the original roster. And then they signed Ethan and BCJ. And so they still need 3 more players, and it's not really clear as to. I'm sorry, there's a bug on my PC. I'm not. It's not really too clear as to who those players are necessarily going to be. But we did get news a while ago. Let's see here. Just trying to find. Did I get rid of the rumor? Oh, hold on. I might have gotten rid of it. Basically, we got news. I believe it was in December, late December, that Demon One, his name's Max Mazanov, that he might be joining Evil Geniuses. He's rumored to join Evil Geniuses. He is a player who played on SQN 2.0, Sequin 2.0. He left in December of 2022. He was apparently the star player for the roster. His top agents at the time are Chamber, Jet, and Cypher. And I've seen him on stream before play Killjoy as well. So thinking he's more of a Sentinel-esque type player. And so there's rumors that he may join the squad for 2023. Here I can show you a little bit of his kind of his highlights. That's volume that I don't want. So yeah, so this is the guy who potentially might be joining in in the 2023 season. He might be joining the squad. Not sure if he would be a main player. I don't think he would. I think Boostio would probably still hold to that kind of role. I don't know really what this EG squad, what the intentions are for what kind of players they're looking for. In terms of roles. Uh, I think there's more so than in Counter-Strike, there's a unique aspect to Valorant where I could definitely see a world where you have really, really talented players, and based on potentially just maybe the flow of the team at the time, or who's in form, or the kind of the style of Valorant that works best, depending on the agent selection and how the game's being played, and what maps people are playing. You could change what your lineup is, depending. Obviously, I think that's something that would require a lot of practice with all the players involved, and all committing to that system. Not something that would be very easy to do, but that might be something that EG is trying to do here. They definitely like to mix things up in terms of how they run their esports divisions, and it looks like if they're going to sign a 10-man roster, I would imagine that the intention would be to kind of do something like that, where they're doing something different, where they have a lot of flexibility with the lineup. That's kind of what I'm thinking they're going to do. It's obviously a lot of power in Potter's hands to kind of determine what they want to do and what they're looking for. But yeah, so that doesn't start till March 26th. They have plenty of time to prepare. They have plenty of time to sign new players. If this guy ends up joining the team, that'd be pretty cool. Like I said, his username is Demon1. And so he might potentially be joining Evil Geniuses for Valorant. Um, and I don't know. This might have been something that happened through whatever these open qualifiers were, that EG was talking about a month or two ago. So yeah, kind of unknown there, but figured it's worth pointing out, as we get into, yeah, probably won't be too much Valorant news in the future, unless roster moves happen, of course, and they sign some players. But since the season doesn't start till March, um, end of March really. So we'll see. But yeah, super exciting stuff. Can't wait for Valorant to start up again. It's going to be really interesting. And then now, here is the big news, guys. The big news for the week. This is pretty big news. I think people are undervaluing how big of a piece of news this really is. As I fail to type this properly. So for CS:GO, CeRq has left Evil Geniuses. This surprised me. This caught me off so bad. But yeah, CeRq, who's been with the team for 5 years, he has. It's been announced that he's no longer a part of the starting lineup. He's no longer a part of the roster. Not only for Blast Premier Spring groups, but he's exited the organization entirely. Um, EG posted a video, kind of to honor him a bit. And yeah, he's gone. Look, how do I want to do this? I guess first I'll kind of talk about why this was such a surprise in my eyes. Because I know for a lot of people they were just going with the whole, CeRq's been pretty terrible the past couple of years, and so it really shouldn't be surprising at all. But I'll explain why I think it is actually surprising. And then I'll also, kind of talk about what this means going forward. Well, you know what? Going forward is probably something I'll talk about after I talk about CeRq. So I think what I'm going to do, first things first, I'm going to talk about why this surprised me. Then I'm going to kind of go into, you know, um, just CeRq and his tenure with Evil Geniuses in general, and my thoughts on him as a person and a player. And then after that, we'll transition into what this means for Blast Premier, and we'll get into talking a little bit more about the Blast Premier groups and my expectations and all that. So first things first, CeRq has left Evil Geniuses. 5 years with the team, man, 5 years, and really, I think it's more like 7 or 8 years with Breeze. Um, the duo, the NRG duo, has finally split up. It's been a long, long time, man, and yeah, it's crazy, man. It's so crazy. It surprised me for this reason. The season for Counter Strike ended for Evil Geniuses around November, I think. Maybe even end of October. Um, and so I was really expecting, if there were any roster moves that were going to happen for the main roster, that they were going to be announced probably at the end of ECL, the NA ECL. I figured that was probably when they would announce roster changes. And then that way you have the expectation of knowing what the roster is going to look like coming into the new year. And you can potentially even practice a little bit with each other beforehand, right? With certain expectations in mind, especially. Um, And so the fact that this has been announced, I mean, this got literally announced the 5th of January, um, is just really surprising. It's really, really shocking. I really did not expect to hear this close to Blast Premiere. And I really hope that this is something that EG was prepared for. Like, and when I say that, I mean the players, like Nealon, for example. Because when I spoke to Vorborg in the interview, I mean, it did not sound like, CeRq was in a position to not be playing as their opper at all, really. And there was no other person really that would have even been good enough to take the position at the time. I don't know. It's weird, man. It's just not what I was expecting to hear at all at the start of this year for the main roster, and it's really surprising to me. I just thought that this would be announced way earlier, so it makes me question: did CeRq? I know he went home during the offseason. Did he go home and just decide, look, like I want to be home. I don't want to be in NA anymore. I've been there for so long. Maybe he missed being at home and just wanted to be there for longer, and maybe he wanted to play for a Bulgarian team or a European, some type of different international squad, and but be able to play from home, right? I don't know. It's anything's possible. We don't know any of the details regarding this, but it just seems strange to me that this happened now and not at the end of last year. And so that's why I over exaggerated a little bit. I tweeted, I said that it was surprising is an understatement. And I don't, maybe that's not true, but it definitely surprising, especially when you consider just how much loyalty EG and CeRq have shown with each other um, over the years. Yeah, it's just not something I expected, man. Really, not something that I expected at all. And a lot of people, I'm gonna get into talking a little bit about CeRq as a person and a player now. Look, a lot of people give him shit because he really was not good in 2020. Uh, from 2020 to 2022, he's really not been good at all. Um, very underwhelming. Not very good performances. I mean, you could say that for literally the entirety of Evil Geniuses, especially that 2021 period was very brutal when Land was back and they were just so bad with changing the rosters and everything. And a lot of people give him shit because he performed extremely poorly and was getting paid a nice amount of money as Smooya so gracefully decided to point out in public because he's an asshole who will never make it in tier one, but whatever. Um, but yeah, I mean, look, it's just shocking when you consider how long he's been with the organization, and especially when you consider that even through those ups and downs, mostly downs, um, they showed a dedication to CeRq that definitely implied that they were going to try to work with CeRq in order to make him the opper that they knew he could be because they've seen it in the past. Um, and while one would try to potentially argue that he never got back to that form. I think that's definitely true. I do think in the past couple of months, the second half of this year, of last year, I should say, he definitely showed great strides in kind of, you know, getting back to that mentality, gaining some confidence again. Obviously, EG was not very good at the end of last year, but they were much better than they were in the first half of the year, especially with all the Stewie 2K drama. And CeRq, look, from a statistical standpoint, I'm sure the increase isn't much, if at all. But when you look at what his decision-making process was when he was within the game, playing against good opponents at times, he just looked a lot more confident as the second half of the year was progressing. At the start, you would. Vorborg talked about this when I interviewed him, but at the start, when Vorborg joined, CeRq would go for like one big play a game, one opening frag with the op, and then after that, he just wouldn't be confident enough to continue to do it. But you can definitely tell that by the end of the stint of last year, he definitely was going for more aggressive picks more often. He was trying to make more aggressive plays. Um, and was trying to get more involved and try to call what he wants to do and gain confidence again, which was something that he really hadn't been able to do for years, literally years. So it just seems kind of surprising that after EG has invested so much time and money into a player like CeRq, that they would suddenly, right before an important event for the squad, just decide to split ways with him. So that's why I get the impression that this is something that CeRq has decided for himself that he wants to do, rather than EG pushing CeRq away. At least that's my my lingering, or my that's kind of my speculation, you could call it, is that this is probably something that he chose for himself. Um, CeRq made a post. Time flies. 5 incredible years of being part of first NRG, then EG. Forever grateful for the emotions, support, and all the things we achieved together. Wishing all the best to the whole team. It's time for a new beginning. And obviously, people might roast him for saying all the things we achieved together. I think people forget just how good CeRq was. CeRq 2019 was a top 20 player on HLTV for the year, one of the best operators in the world for a couple years. And by the way, guys, he's still 23 years old. He's 23 years old. When he was in 2019, was a top 20 player in the world. He was 19 or 20. The kid is young and he's got a lot of talent. And I know it hasn't really showed, but I really do believe it's somewhere within him. It's a confidence thing. It really is when it comes to opping, especially like people just for some reason can't understand that when you lose so many games in a row, not even just like 16-14s, when you lose games like 16-7 consistently for 2 years as an opper, you just don't have any confidence left. I mean, there's just nothing left, and it takes more than just a couple of months to get that back. It's gonna take years potentially to get that back, and so I really am hoping that CeRq is able to go. If he's going home, that he goes home. Whatever team he plays for, if he continues to play Counter Strike professionally, that whatever he does, he just is. He succeeds, and that he grows and gets better, and potentially can make his way back to the tier one scene, and show off some of that level of form that we know CeRq has, but just hasn't been able to show for so long, just due to his lack of confidence. I think the mechanical ability has always been there. I mean, if you watch the guy's movement and his aim, it's incredible. The talent is within him. It's just whether or not he's able to bring it out and gain that confidence again, because he's a very emotional person. And so I really hope that things go well for him. Shocking news, but honestly, it looks like if this is a new beginning for him, I'm glad for him, and I really hope things go well. Because of everything. I mean, the second EG picked up the roster, EG won an event. They were one of the best teams in the world. They were a top three team in the world. Um, Even during 2020, at one point, they were listed as the number one team in the world. They were dominant in North America, and CeRq played a role in that. And I think that's something that obviously, as people like to just completely forget about the online era. I mean, before we went to the online era, CeRq was one of the best operators in the world. Simple as that. And he played a key role in winning some of the tournaments we won. Yeah, I have a lot of respect for him, and I really hope that he does well in the future. Now, a lot of people criticize him and call him a check stealer. I've kind of talked about this criticism in the past. I don't think it's fair to call CeRq a check stealer. Out of all the people that get called a check stealer, which to recap, besides fucking Stewie, from last year, during the time period where people are typically talking about when the check stealing really started to become a phrase that was used with evil geniuses, the main culprits were really like Stanislaw, Breeze, and CeRq. Those are really the three players, at least off the top of my head, that really stand out in terms of check stealing. And look, I can understand it from Stanislaw, right? Stanislaw was not IGLing very well. Like I literally, you watch that Stockholm major, I don't even think he was IGLing, to be completely honest. It looked like there were no fucking ideas whatsoever. They were just wandering around the map aimlessly, just doing basically nothing, and then just splitting up and dying. It was terrible to watch. Um, Breeze obviously took a break. Stanislaw and Breeze both attempted to take breaks. There were rumors that Breeze was going to go to Valorant and join 100 Thieves at one point during last year. I mean, it was bad. But if you notice, there's one player that never got into any of those talks. It was CeRq. And on top of that, not only was that his name wasn't mentioned, when people did mention his name, they mentioned how hard he worked because he felt so terrible that he was playing as poorly as he was. Look, when I hear check stealer, I think someone who's getting paid more money than they deserve and isn't trying at all, isn't putting in the effort, doesn't care about their performance, and just wants the money. And I don't think that was CeRq. I really don't think that was ever CeRq. I really don't. Um, I think CeRq literally just tried his hardest to put in the best effort he could throughout the entire time they were terrible, and really, it was really hard on himself. Um, was really hard on himself, and knew he needed to be better for the team, and he just never really got to that level. He never was able to get it back entirely, but he kept putting in the work, and so to me, that by definition is not check stealing. You're not a check stealer if you try your hardest and you're really trying to be better, and it just doesn't happen for you. Um, and you get paid a shit ton of money to do it. That's not check stealing. If that's a mistake on anybody, it's not CeRq. The mistake is on Evil Geniuses for continuing to use CeRq on their team, right? That's a management failure, right? That's a GMing mistake. That's not CeRq's fault. So I just feel like it's really unjustified when people really beat down on CeRq, who seems to be a very self-critical person. He really thinks critically about what he does and what he's doing for the team, and how he's performing, and really probably punishes himself more so than anyone else can punish him. And so I'm sure, like when he's getting constant messages about how bad he is, it's just not, and that he's a check stealer. It's just disgusting, frankly. And people just love putting labels on people without actually thinking about what they mean. Um, so yeah, obviously, really sad to see CeRq go, but overall, I'm happy for him. I think this is actually going to be good for him, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what he's able to do in the future. And if he's able to get back to tier one, I really think that would be something special. So farewell to CeRq. If he's listening to this, I don't know that he is, but if he is, thank you for everything you did. I don't think EG. I mean, whether CeRq, agrees with this or not, I don't know, but I feel like EG could have done a nicer goodbye. Could have done more in the goodbye. Maybe not. I don't know. I still feel like they did the same thing with the Dota 2 roster. They didn't really give them their due. But overall, I would just say CeRq is an incredible person. He's an incredible person, an incredible player. I've always heard good things about him. He was my favorite. He was one of my, if not my favorite player to watch back when I was, a couple of years ago. And even now, I watch his POVs. I still look up his POVs sometimes just to watch his movement and his aim. It's just incredible to watch. And so I really hope that he's able to make it back. And thank you for everything that you've done for Evil Geniuses, because I know you're probably just going to get a lot of hate and nobody's going to care. Nobody's talking about this, but this is actually a pretty big deal. Um, and uh, and yeah, I wish you all the best, man. Really appreciate everything you did, and then how hard you worked. Um, because I'll never know, right? I'll never know how hard he truly worked, but I've never heard anything about CeRq being lazy ever, ever. And EG was horrible, guys. Like, even taking 1 month off and not trying that hard, you would be like, dude, it's understandable. Like, the team sucks. But I've never heard anything bad about CeRq, literally ever, in terms of his work ethic. So I just, yeah, I don't see how anyone can be, you know, too harsh on the guy, honestly. And I hope he's able to do better things in the future. Um, yeah. So in terms of what this means for EG going into the Blast Premiere, let's see if I can change the topic here. CSGO. Blast Premiere. That doesn't even fit. Oh my goodness. Back to this again. I went to go change this to where I wouldn't have to like do this every time, but it didn't really work out, so I gave up on it. I'll have to figure it out later. But as for what this does to the Blast Premier squad, it basically meant, in my mind, the only two options to replace CeRq with are Ponalone and Wiz, and it looks like it's going to be Wiz. Because EG, the following players have been announced for the Blast, or have been listed for Blast Spring groups for them: Breeze, Automatic, Neelan, Hext, Wiz, Viz, and George. George Snorts. George. Uh, he just goes by George now, which is, thank God. And then obviously Vorborg is the coach. So look, somebody put in the HLTV response expected. I'm not. I didn't expect this. I expected Pone alone to take the spot if CeRq was going to be gone, at least as of right now. I figured Wiz, he has been performing well in ECL, but I would have expected them to give Pone alone the spot because Pone alone has just been playing at a higher level with the op more for a longer period of time, right? He's got a longer consistency. He's played more international competition, right? Um, than Wiz has, and so I kind of expected them to go at least this early on, right? Like if this is a decision that had been made of, in the summer of this current year, right, and maybe they, Wiz and EG Black performed really, really well again for this season, and then they decide to make that move and switch to Wiz, I would have understood that if Wiz had been performing well, but this just seems a bit premature. Wiz has been averaging a 1.14 rating with EG Black, but I just do not know. Well, I have no faith that Wiz will be able to perform against the competition he's going to be facing. Look, he's playing well in ECL, but guys, I mean, we're talking about the best of the best here. I mean, we are literally talking about, you know, uh, let's see. I mean, let's look at these rosters. So we're looking at Katie and Monzi. Even OC would outclass him. Brokey, Simple, Zywoo, Dexter, Searson, like, geez, man, just Device, like, just go down the list. Even Halserk would probably give him a run. Like, I don't know, dude. Like, these offers in this competition are going to be tough. This is a huge step up for a guy like Wiz. I don't think he's ready. I think this is too early. Personally, he's shown a lot of promise, but I would have liked to have seen him play in a couple more ECL seasons, and then again, maybe during the summer of this year, if he has really been picking it up and been showing serious consistency and performing super, super well, then I understand it. But I just feel like Pone alone would have made more sense right now. Um, Very strange to me. Very, very strange to me. Um, Obviously, EG could always decide to sign a international offer, like a Mantu or something. I think Mantu is really the best free agent available now. It's Kenny S is on Falcons or whatever. Um, I'm sure there's other names as well, but I'm just kind of off the top of my head. But uh, which I think would be a great move, probably the best move they could make. But obviously, with the whole Blueprint project, they're going to want to try to go internally first. But if they try Wiz and it doesn't work, and they try Pwn alone and it doesn't work, I mean, frankly, I don't think you can go to that many events trying stuff like that. Um, I think if Wiz doesn't work, they got to look at Man too. They got to look at some international talent because look, you're not gonna find if there's one. NA is already struggling as it is. It's seriously struggling in the opping department. So I don't know about this. This just seems a little too early for me. I'm nervous. I'm really, really nervous going into this Blast premiere because this is an event, guys, that EG really needs to perform well on. I'm not saying like a top three placing or something crazy like that. That's way out of expectation, but they got to do something because at this point, they've had their time to settle in with their new roster, with Nealon and everybody. This is the event they need to perform. And by the way, I don't think the solution, because here's the other potential solution, right? Maybe they don't go with Wiz, and what they decide to do is they bring in George, right? I know what you're thinking. George is a rifle. It doesn't make sense. Well, Automatic used to be an opper a year or two ago, when he played for Gen G. Uh, Potentially, they could make Automatic the opper and then bring George into the team. I I think that's a nice short-term compromise, but I would not want to see that long term. I think Automatic's impact as a rifler is just too big for you to take that away from him. He's a decent opper, but the impact with the rifle is way too strong for Automatic. I just don't see it being worth it, even if it is a possible solution. And George is a very talented player and would do probably very well in the main roster. I think George is most likely like a potential Hex replacement if Hex doesn't perform this season. Um, because Hex didn't really perform very well last year. He was very, very bad. Um, Hoping that he's able to now that he's kind of had enough time to get adjusted to the tier one scene, this is kind of where the next step needs to come in for him. Lots of pressure on this EG roster to perform because they've looked very poor. They were getting better with every event they were playing for the most part last year with the new roster. But this is really like, hey, you guys have had the time to settle in. you got to perform to some level. I'm talking, you got to have like beat complexity, you know, beat complexity, beat big, beat try to potentially be NIP and Astralis, maybe get an upset on a top team, you know what I mean? Make it a close best of 3 against like a G2 or a heroic or something like that, like make it very competitive. Show that you have some fight compared to last year where we just got dominated by top teams. I really really want to see this team do something. They have to have some kind of impact in this event. Um, to really prove to people that EG can do something. Um, so yeah, Blast Premier starts January 19th, guys. So it starts in a week. Yeah, starts in a week. So yeah, gonna be crazy. Lots of pressure on the line, at least in my eyes. Obviously, to the rest of CS:GO fans, they're just like EG shit. They're a free win. So not really much pressure in that standpoint. But I'm tired of EG being the punching bag. I just want it to end. As a fan, it fucking sucks. And it hurts. So please end my suffering. There's two ways you can do it. You can either do well or just drop the entire project. Obviously, that's not going to happen. That's just a stupid joke. But yeah. Look, lots of pressure. But like, look, I look. There's 12 teams here. They're all really strong teams, right? They're all the partner teams, right? They're all the partner teams, and they're all good. They're all decent teams. Like, look, if I had to go down the list and say which teams I expect EG to probably definitely lose to, Heroic, G2, Liquid, FaZe, Navi, Vitality, OG's a really good team. NIP probably, and then obviously Astralis hasn't looked great recently, and Buzz is probably not going to be very good. Let me be honest. And Zipnix is trash. He's washed as fuck now. Maybe you could beat an Astralis. You could. I definitely think EG's better than Complexity. So I think they should beat Complexity, and I think Big is a team they could beat. But look, so I've listed what 3 teams potentially you could slide NIP there for 4. Although I really like Alexi B, so I don't know about that. Look, it's just I don't know, man. Really strange. And now with getting Wiz probably into the roster, it's just I don't know, dude. I'm anxious. I'm really, really anxious about this event. I do not know about this. I'm trying to be positive, but frankly, it's looking pretty gloomy. Um, yeah, not too sure about how this event's gonna go, to be completely honest. Hopefully well, but I need to see some upsets. I need to see some really, really close series against top teams. Um, and when I say top teams, I don't mean NIP. I mean G2, FaZe, Navi, Heroic. Take a map. Take a map. If you can take a map, that's cool with me. That's what I want to see from this event. So yeah, I think that's it pretty much. Yeah, not really a whole lot else to talk about. Like I said, I think overall it's pretty interesting. I'm excited, obviously, for all these esports to start up again. Um, but yeah, the big news was really CeRq leaving the team, and obviously how that impacts EG's roster going into Blast. Um, but yeah, I think overall it's gonna be exciting. Obviously, look, I know this episode we talked about every single esport, which is why it ran a little, 48 minutes, which is actually kind of short for me. I'm gonna try to shorten these episodes down a little bit as we progress into this year. I promise. They were getting pretty long before. But obviously, we talked about every esport. Next week is going to be a bit weird, right? Because there's really not a whole lot, really, probably to talk about. There might be some small updates. But because none of this stuff starts up really until the end of January, the earliest thing is what, Dota 2, right? Dota 2? Yeah, Dota's this week, right? So Dota's going to be this week, so we'll have some stuff to talk about Dota. Unless any roster moves happen for Valorant or League of Legends, mostly, well, not really League of Legends. If any news comes in for Valorant, that can something we could potentially talk about. Uh, Maybe some more news on the EG main roster for Blast. But other than that, um, that's that's pretty much all we have to talk about. So next episode should probably be pretty short. Maybe we'll talk about the Blueprint project or kind of do something a little bit more abstract with the episode to kind of, put in some more substance there. If you guys have anything you want me to talk about, just let me know in the comments, and I'll more than happy to kind of discuss it and kind of I would like obviously it depends on how many viewers I'm able to pull in, obviously. But if you guys do listen to any of this and you do want to ask a question, feel free to ask a question. I'll talk about it during the episode. Um, and put it in a little timestamp and everything. Because I want to interact with people more. Um, I wanted to interact with the Discord a lot more. I just don't really know how the Discord works and who's involved in all that, and kind of how much traction that would get. If I'd love to do something where it's like you go through the Discord, people go to the CS:GO section, they can ask me questions regarding the CS:GO team, and I'll talk about them or whatever. Maybe I'll try to do that next episode. Try to see what people are talking about in the Discord. But yeah, other than that, kind of all I have to talk about. So looking forward to next week, guys, and we'll talk about the Dota 2 team. We'll talk about any other news that comes up. But yeah, hopefully you guys all had a great New Year, great holiday break, and are looking forward to the new year. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have for you. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode.